Hello, everyone, and welcome to another of our Project Kin project recipes. This one I'm especially excited about doing, well, quite frankly, because it's my own. I am delighted to be able to share with you a recipe for a project that I've been working on for a while now, as I wanted to share a story about how I have used what I call a private podcast with my own family. So let's get started with the presentation and welcome everyone. We are just getting started as we get going. The idea for a private podcast was quite simply engagement. And I found over the years that this is one of those key things that all of us as family historians seem to share as a challenge. It's like the brick wall behind the brick wall. Once you do all of this work and research, how do you get your own family to pay attention? They say they're interested, but are they really? Will they do the work? No, they don't really want to do all the research. They just want to coast off of yours. That's kind of okay. But at the end of the day, usually we're trying to rope them into it. It's something that we're fascinated by and excited by. We want to get them in on it. I have a different angle on it, though. I felt very strongly, we can even have a whole separate conversation about this, about privacy. I felt in my family in particular, which I don't think is all that different from other families with things like divorce and alcoholism and all kinds of complexities. I wanted to ensure that we had privacy for the conversation because I believe the story changes depending on who is in the room. And I think today's social media has driven that even further by creating a performative sort of way in which you're either showing why the world is perfect or why everything is so unfair to you. It just creates a level of performance that gets away from the actual stories. And that's what I wanted to try to do. Also, I had already built out a pretty sophisticated archive. I've been using weare.xyz, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Quite frankly, there are other ways to do this, and I don't want to be pitching any given platform, but I had put a lot of investment into this, and that was the problem I was trying to solve. How do I share that? In my case, I chose that platform precisely because they give me a level of privacy. I have access control, meaning username, password for each individual that's added into the platform. And it lets me shamelessly share photos, stories, maps, my research. I have to fix that typo. Debunking myths, which you'll see is a big thing in my family, is just a gold mine if anybody paid attention. So I wanted a way to get them to pay attention. I know from marketing that this idea of drip marketing actually works. You can roll out stories a little bit at a time in the little bits that people are ready to pay attention to. And they do. It works. It leverages human behavior. So I wanted to take advantage of that. Getting them to come back into the archive is hard. But I have a key here. These are our stories. And I knew that curiosity was working for me. What I needed was that private channel to make this work. So I hit on the idea of a podcast. So as we were just discussing at the start of this, why a podcast? What is a podcast? The podcast started as a marketing idea. It was introduced by Apple when they introduced the iPod, which was really just an MP3 player, but they added, many may not even realize this, they added a much higher quality audio that played only in their podcast, in their iPods. They needed a way to demonstrate that value. You could hear it best in voice as opposed to MP3. So they introduced podcasts and got a bunch of really radio show providers to deliver those packaged onto these devices. Well, it, needless to say, took off, and the term podcasts became a much more general term that everybody used for distribution of initially audio and later video kinds of programs. A video podcast on the, it's used the way blogs are used, and it's just a media based blog. Importantly, this idea of a device delivered audio video meant you also could deliver show notes. Link in the show notes. You've heard that 1,000 times. Show notes creates a way to lure folks somewhere you want them to go with links. Again, that's done in marketing all the time. That's what I'm going to leverage. And that's what led me to using Substack. Frankly, I'd already come to Substack for all its own reasons to what I was trying to do with Project Kin. So that also meant that I was also very aware of what Substack was doing. They introduced media-rich features in a newsletter 2 days after I launched Project Kin on Substack. So I was already paying a lot of attention to how it worked. I also was very aware of how they had paid levels. So if you spend any time in Substack, you recognize they're trying to get you to drive to paid because frankly, that's how they make money. Total respect. It's especially as compared to advertising. So a podcast in Substack's language is actually a media-rich newsletter. It works exactly the same way. The difference is that you have your streamed media from these newsletters that go out. And if you see any of these recordings, like this one, when I share it, when you tap it as you receive it as an email, you tap the moving picture to play, it goes to the website. It establishes that security that you received this as an email and then plays it for you. They don't make you log in because they know where you came from. And it's that kind of elegance I know from platforms is hard to do. They've done it very well. Now, if I was going to use that kind of a channel to set up with my family to get them into the archive, they're going to have 2 different accounts. That means a separation of what I'm calling the outreach from the archive. That's hard. That's hard. And especially since I wanted to provide that layer of privacy from prying eyes. That was the whole point. And again, for me, privacy was just non-negotiable. If I couldn't do it with privacy, I wasn't going to do it. So, as with so many things, that just meant I had to go work a little bit harder to make it work. It's like backwards and in high heels. So for the archive, I have account control. And for the newsletter, I was going to also drive account control by leveraging what Substack is already doing with account control to manage who gets access to paid. That's controlled by account control. All I had to do was create a paid only newsletter and invite my cousins, but make them forever comp. So giving them free accounts to this supposedly paid Substack. So those are the ingredients that I use to create this private podcast. Now, to be clear, this is my recipe. You can use your own ingredients and adjust it as you see necessary. And that's why, in my view, with these podcasts, project recipes, I drive them in such a way to explain why I did what I did, so that as you vary it for your own purposes, you can make your own choices. If you already have your own archive, for example, in something like Obsidian, that's awesome. Good for you. How you get to Obsidian and set it up for, I think, what's called cloud syncing and so on, I don't really know how to use because I don't do that myself, but I think that could be very cool. And I look forward to people adding their own thoughts and suggestions in the chat, which, as I said, is now set up over in Project Kin. So take a look at that. So all the way through, I'm going to focus on 4 milestones to get there from here. And there are, I'll admit, a lot of details, particularly in the Substack configuration. I've tried to make that absolutely as easy as possible by giving you screenshot for screenshot of the steps to set that up. I was a little surprised by the steps myself, but that's the whole point of doing this. If it were just so straightforward, it wouldn't be worth explaining, right? So let's start with preparing the archive. So in preparing the archive, this is, following what the archive is telling you to do, what they're trying to set you up for success in doing. Adding things like the We Are archive is wonderful in my view because it lets you import your GEDCOM file that already describes your family tree, import that, and now you have all the people at its base, truly, it took me a while to understand this. It's a database that just gives you a wonderful presentation for it on the web. And once you upload the people, then you start adding things like about them, photographs, places, things like that. That worked out very well for me. I'd already put the emphasis into that. So I'd already prepped the archive, but that's the general idea. And this can be helpful in terms of knowing where you're going with all of this. Plus, once you start to put all that material in there, you're setting up really your content management system, if you'll pardon the marketing expression. But those are the stories you're going to be driving from as you build your stories and connections to your family. Again, it's a database, so it uses this kind of structure to pull it to help you order the materials that you add in there. Forgive me, but being very English, very British, they start with the royal family as an example, which I thought was quite charming. I don't think as Americans we would have done it that way because I don't think about my family the same way, but it works, and you get the basic idea for how to structure your story. Now, in structuring, preparing the outreach can be a little counterintuitive. So I'm going to take a little bit more time. I hope you'll indulge me on this in stepping through, because essentially what you're doing is creating episodes out of each of your stories. Pardon the cat. Each post has a story to tell, and it encourages comments. This is where we're getting to the engagement part of your newsletter. The post will reference details in the archive. This is your link in bio. This is your link in the archive, link in the show notes. You're sending people back. In marketing, we call that a lead gen. But that's essentially what you're doing. You're trying to get people to get into it. You're not finding new cousins this way. That's a different exercise. You can go do that on social media, go do that on some other platform. This is, you know who your cousins are, and you're bringing them in and getting them engaged. So as you prepare the archive, start thinking about those stories. These are from my own archive, and I have used these with engagement in my family. That first picture on the far right with the family crest, that's the welcome page. That's the top level as it's structured within We Are. It explains kind of what you're doing and why you're doing it. The Betsy Ross story is what they call a research, an article that collects your research. I hit on this one because actually you may have noticed, I've been pinging for a while to find out what is it that gets people excited? What is it that really brings family members into a story? I was amused that in the British side, they all want to know, are we related to the royalty? Americans don't think that way. Are we related to celebrities is usually the thing. In our case, in my family, which certainly does have very long history in America, I think we were kicked out of England. Rumor had spread, started by a wonderful book written by my grandmother. Many of you have heard me quote many times. The story is told that we're related to Betsy Ross. It is completely not true, but it is hinted at in this book. It's like the only thing people remember. There were only 100 copies stamped on the inside. I only know where about 10 of them are. I have no idea where the rest of them are, but that story stuck. But the curiosity of it, oh yeah, no, it's not true, and here's why. That gets people excited. Yeah, you just had to find something, find a hook, which is, what we talk about a lot is Project Kin. The second thing to do in preparing the family, so you've prepared the archive, you've prepared prepared your outreach. Now start preparing the family and think about cohorts. So you're going to be supporting these people, getting them on board. It's a white glove. It's a customer success kind of strategy. Think about who goes together. Where is the chatter? I bring my siblings together, my cousins who are siblings to each other. and bring them together and put them in one archive, one cohort. Then when you're ready, you're bringing in another cohort. Again, thinking about who's connected to each other. What gets them excited? What stories have they heard? As I'll show you, I also discovered in We Are, there's a nifty way to show how you fit into the family tree. That's the purple indicated people with sort of the blurred, for privacy reasons, family members on this family tree. I showed people where they fit on the family tree so they would know, because though I know all of this, they don't, as it turns out. That really surprised me as well. I know all of you. How come you don't know each other? And then you get into the dialogue itself. So we've prepped the archive, we've prepped the research, the outreach tools, basically the Substack. By the way, I just gleamed really fast over the Substack part. That's because I have an entirely separate piece that's going to walk you methodically through each of those. And those will be distributed, surprise, in my show notes. Those will be in the notes that go with this as I send it out. So we've prepared the outreach, we've prepared the family, thought about who is going to come in when and in what batches. And now we get going. Well, yes, but no. We're going to do it in carefully. And this is what I mean by starting the dialogue with intentionality. So the first part to it is you don't use the app's own invitation tools. We're all taught by these apps that, you throw up your pictures and you send out your invites and you wait. I think we all know that that doesn't really work. And I really can say that coming from Ponga. Just sending out an app is not enough. You need to really tell them what's coming, tell them what to expect. I highly recommend a personal email. I even have templates for you for what to include in these personal emails that go out, that set expectations for what to expect coming into what you're doing, why you're doing it. Then you invite them to the outreach element using the comp or imported subscribers, and then that they are specifically given a forever complimentary status as paid subscribers. You just won't have any real paid subscribers. You're comping everybody. You also won't have any free subscribers. Unless you get even fancier about how you set it up. You can also set up separate publications to do different things within your same Substack account. Then you're inviting them to the We Are archive. As you'll see in the instructions, these 3 emails can all happen essentially at the same time, but it's really important to think about how you actually do that you use the same email address, for example, for each of those, and you walk through how you take those steps. The reason I feel so strongly about keeping them in a cohort is you want to keep them together. You want to be able to, okay, I did all of that. I got the 10. Now what happened? So give them like a day. And here, because of both Substack and We Are, and depending on how you have your email configured, you can tell, you can know, did they do it? What I found is, frankly, because Substack's deliverability of their email is so incredibly good, I had a far higher rate of acceptance of the invitations from Substack than I did from We Are. We Are is a little tiny company, and getting that level of deliverability, size matters a great deal in the way these platforms are run. Substack does deliveries of email in the millions tens of millions every day. So they're very, very good at it. And sure enough, they do. So what do? You follow up. Hey, did you see? What do I need to do? Do you want to do this live? Let's just do a little Zoom. Make sure that you can get on board on the weare.xyz platform and get everybody up and going. And I've got some tips for you on that, again, in the, we'll call it show notes. It's in the recipe that will be attached as a PDF to that. So over time, the good news is once you get that first cohort done, each subsequent one gets easier. And the channel stays open. What you're really doing is setting up a channel. And each new cohort is a little bit easier. They can also hear about it from their cousins. You can easily add one more if you miss somebody or somebody else wants to in, and it gets easier and easier. And with Substack, what you're doing is as each post goes out, it goes out to them as an email. It also goes onto the Substack, the page of posts. So any new person who comes in after it started can go back and see where the other ones are. You can also send that first one that gets them started with pointers to the tips and other kinds of things the same way as the first one everybody sees. And that becomes so much easier after time. That's where I am now. I started doing this in late June. So that was a big help. So it's not all about the technology bits. And I think that's why I've separated out the technology bits from this presentation, because I want you to focus on the social parts of it. Honestly, the hardest part of this really amounts to social engineering. You are telling them what to expect. You're watching. It's like a dinner party. You want people to feel comfortable. When you actually start the dialogue, that's the point of your email that goes out. You're sending out that first email using the same approach they've always used in talking to you. I use Gmail. Many of you do, I know, from your subscriptions. Gmail, I use the web client or their Gmail app on my phone. Although I have all Macintosh stuff, I don't use Apple's apps because I have a lot of tricks that are part of that. One is there's a you can check with me later if you're interested. There are tools to know if an email has been delivered, if they opened it. You can also use templates. Templates are wonderful because you can make it pretty and they pay attention, but it's still the same make it pretty you've always used, so they know it's really from you. I mentioned you send out the platform invitations, weare.xyz and Substack right away. So they see one and then they see the others like, whoa, things are happening. I got to pay attention. That's what you're trying to accomplish. In preparing for that outreach, you are configuring the messages that they will first receive on the platform. So the way it works on almost all of these, an invitation goes out, they have to accept the invitation, then they get another message that says, great, you're on board, right? A fundamental to communications is not just the broadcast, not just the sent a message. It's the sent a message, the acknowledgement that you received the message, and now the channel is established, the communications are established. That's what you're doing. And then you're monitoring it to see what happens and did they get it. So this is the level of tech we're going to hit. Don't worry, it is not much more than this. So as we start the dialogue, and I'm not going to teach you how to write your own emails, you know how to do that. But when you get into We Are, for example, you are going in and they structure the invitation of guests around the family tree you've already built in. So to find a relation to invite, you start typing their name, and sure enough, it pops up. You enter their email address because We Are doesn't know that yet, and hit send, and boom, out goes the invite. They get this super simple email that says, welcome, I've invited you to this site. Notice I kind of blurred out all my names because it really is mine. It really is live and it really is private. So they just tap the join We Are. They're going to be asked to enter a password that keeps it private. Okay, super important. Also, as I mentioned from a screenshot from this display, I realized that, you know what, they were all kind of wondering, well, who is here? And that's kind of the point about privacy. The story you tell depends on who is in the room. They want to know who's in the room. So it's like a good party. You make the introductions. You also tell them in the email that this post is there so they can go see who else is here. Who is this Sally? I don't know Sally. Oh, she's their cousin. I get it. So she's my what? That kind of thing helps people connect. And it also suddenly they didn't know they had a shared relative who now lives in Missouri. And wow, it can start to make connections to context, to perhaps locations where the family had lived 200 years ago. They also may not know nicknames, things like that. With Substack, the steps are pretty much the same, though there are some subtle differences because of the way it's creating essentially a website, a Substack, a stack. So they call that, in Substack language, they call that a welcome page. I give you the instructions on how to set up a private Substack so that if anybody arrives on this page, they expect to go in. But when they get there, it's locked. It says, this Substack is private, but it gives me a chance to subscribe. That's because we don't know who's coming. You enter the email address, that triggers a message to me, the person who set it up, that says, so-and-so has asked to come in. Can they come in? Yes or no? Now, I set mine up to basically, I'm ready for a no for everything. And I should make sure that if I ever say yes, that I know what email they're going to get. And it's the same email that I would use for imported people that I've added automatically as forever comp. Those are very subtle distinctions to walk through, but your welcome page to just anybody who is a doorknob jiggler gets a welcome page that's locked. And if they attempt to subscribe, you get a message. They don't get in. If they are invited, however, because you uploaded their email, and maybe they've accepted, maybe they haven't, but once you upload their email, if they hit the page, they're presented with this description. It looks different because they're coming in with a different email. If they're already logged into Substack, so Substack knows what their email address is when they arrive, it will pre-populate their email. And if they hit the have an invitation tab here, if they tap that, they're right in. That's all they have to do. And again, otherwise they get a sorry, are you one of us? What's the secret code, essentially? It also avoids you having just sharing a secret login, a secret password that everybody gets, which is the standard for a private web page, because that's easily forgotten, easily messed up, easily shared. You don't want to do that. Over in Substack, again, when you're in the dashboard to invite people, this is what I meant by uploading email addresses in the Substack dashboard. As a publisher, you're publishing your Substack, you can add a name. So here's adding a name, and you specifically select lifetime paid subscription and tap add. And this is where you have a different place where you're going to configure a special email address that email message when you have manually added people. And they then receive that welcome. You have been invited to click here to get started. And that will create an account or log them in if they already have a Substack account. You don't know that. Lots of people have Substack accounts. They don't even know they have Substack accounts because they just subscribe to some email newsletter somewhere along the way. And that's actually pretty good. Again, don't worry about these details. They're all in the recipe, as will be the slides. So you'll get all of this. You'll catch me if I was inconsistent about anything. Finally, on that Substack outreach, as I said at the very beginning, perhaps even before the recording began, the playback of, the idea of a podcast, in this case, you've understood that this is really just a newsletter. The difference is from ordinary newsletters on something like MailChimp, is that it includes the ability to include media, and it takes care of the media hosting. So you can include a YouTube video, for example, on a MailChimp email message, but where you're hosting, YouTube is doing the hosting in that case. In this case, and it's not by definition not private. I can have my videos be exclusive and private and only accessible to the people who have paid accounts. well, they're all forever comp, they're private accounts. And they're coming in and watching my media that way. So when they tap the link in the email, it comes straight into Substack. It doesn't bother them with logins because it knows where they came from. And in that sense, it's linked and locked. Access control is managed by Substack, and their media is not the media that you record. They can't just download the whole thing. There are some subtle but important exceptions to that relative to privacy you'll want to be aware of. And I have a little caveat there to clarify. But at a high level, for most of the stories that we're telling, this is the good enough level of privacy. In keeping the discussion going, realize again that what you're doing is creating a channel between email and your archive, and getting them into that archive. You have a channel to talk to them. Your one post goes to all of your cousins. To get them talking to each other, they need to come together either in the comments in Substack or in comments in the archive. It's hard to get them to comment because they don't know who's in the room. That will happen over time. You're building trust. Trust the system, trust the flow. You've used it before because you've probably done this in all of the social media that you've been using and any number of other things. The cadence is important, that they start to know that with every major holiday, perhaps even birthdays within the family or major moments when someone was, a loved one was passed, email messages will go out. Bring in a collaborator, get a cousin, get a nephew, niece, get someone else who's interested in all of this to help you. By the way, Substack's really good at that. It's designed for magazine levels of people collaborating on something. So you can absolutely designate someone else as a collaborator who has the same full access that you do. In fact, on that point, it's really got an enterprise class management system on all of the details, which is why I'm comparing it to things like MailChimp or Active Campaign or, Constant Contact, all of those kinds of email systems, because it offers that level of visibility on what is happening. As an admin, you see detailed stats on views for any one person. You can see what they looked at, when they looked at it, what buttons they clicked in doing that. And then you can also see for all of your posts, how often was it opened? How many views did it get? How many plays did it get? All of those kinds of things. As you can see, you can send out, I sent out an email to tell the first cohort that another cohort was coming in. That worked out really well. As you can see, I got 100% open rate. The open rates are very high. That's actually not surprising because my list is pretty small. I only have about 18 people in there, including myself. But and again, I'm not trying to make it bigger. Everybody is private. Everybody is coming in only on invitations. So I am keeping it small and tight. And I want to see who doesn't open anything. Why the hell not? Didn't they know I sent it? It takes that kind of focus to going all the way through. And again, it's curiosity. It's the same thing that's the itch that we all scratch to do family history and genealogy. In my case, I dangled a story that wasn't true, but they all thought was true, to get them interested, to get them paying attention. So to review how we got here, and how about that? I'm way ahead of time, so we're gonna have plenty of time for discussion. Send a personal email to get people to know what to expect. Customize the welcome page in We Are. Customize the experience in We Are. Create podcast episodes that are going to engage. What I did was to sit down with my eldest first cousin, and I am the second to the youngest of our first cousin group. And I interviewed him. I spent a lot of time in retrospect telling him what we were going to be doing and why, but it was also good to get his engagement. And by the way, in a family, seniority tends to carry some weight. getting the oldest guy in the family, who was in his early 80s, to say, yeah, this is good, I'm in, and have him engaged in commenting. He was like a um, collaborator, in the sense that he made it okay for everybody else to come in. They couldn't say, I'm too old, I won't understand it. He did it. If he can do it, I can do it. Use those dynamics. Those family dynamics are your friend. What does success look like? Success looks like people getting engaged and telling stories. It has you listening closely to, what is it about this enterprise that interests them? Why? What do they want to know? What are the stories we don't talk about? What are the uncomfortable stories, and how can we bring those out so that we can capture them for posterity, capture the context, capture the perspective that our elders, our loved ones, our cousins all had, in understanding where we're going for this. I found there were surprises to me as I was using the We Are archive, for example, as I was using Substack. I tried to capture those in posts to pre-populate my Substack before I brought anybody in. So first of all, there was something there they could look at. That's part of preparing your Substack. But also to anticipate what questions they would have, and stay ahead of them. Finally, make sure, keep as a practice to keep knowing that you're driving them back into the archive, and monitor that so you know how to come back to it. And don't be shy about sending emails, for example, only to the people who haven't come back in. Hey, did you know that? There's this thing happening over there. So, in summary, this whole thing is about a priority on privacy. And if you want to drive that family engagement with an online system, but still protect the privacy of the family conversations, the family stories, you can do that. And this is a way to do it. Part of any of these things, go ahead and learn from marketing, learn from social media. Keeping them interesting and surprising is really important. The stories that aren't particularly interesting and aren't particularly surprising are still there. They can go ahead and go into the archive where they belong, but they don't necessarily need to be the ones that you lead with to try to drive the questions engagement. And the sort of the secret method to all of this was really just to realize that to set up that path using a very well established commercial product that is well designed and supported to do the rest of it was just to recognize this paid comp is private. And that's what suddenly made it work for me. So with that, I'm going to stop the slides and invite questions. How's that? You all seemed so very quiet while we did all of that. Go ahead and take your microphones off mute. Jennifer, you're up in the middle of the night.
I am. No, I've been up for a few hours, so it's fine.
Always worried about you coming in from Australia. Do you have any questions?
No. Well, I came in to listen, not thinking it would, I would have a lot of interest in doing like private podcasting. It's something I've never thought of. But I don't know. You've piqued my interest now with, the privacy of it.
Yeah.
And even though I think there's probably a lot to learn, but it just seems like it might be quite simple.
That's right.
To
I
get my
hope
head
so.
around.
I hope
Yeah.
so. Now
Yeah.
I know that you have a deep experience with weare.xyz, right?
No,
No,
no, not at all. Not at all.
not at all. Oh, okay.
No,
Sorry.
no. Yeah, no, that must be someone else, but I'm keen to have a look at it. Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Other questions? Come on. You've got a mute button. Go ahead. Take it off. It's all right. Yeah, Stacy.
Yeah, I actually posted them in the chat thing that you said, so I didn't realize. But I had a couple of just clarifications on it because it sounds very intriguing. Are you recording these interviews and things that you do with family members via Zoom, or are you doing them on your phone, and then are you just linking them as links into your posts on Substack, or are you linking them in your archive?
That's a terrific question. Uh, I did the interviews, the recorded dialogue with my cousin using Zoom. And actually I've been experimenting, we'll find out with this recording. I've been experimenting with ways to improve the quality because they were coming in at 360 DPI, which was terrible. And I think I finally hit on a magic combination that improves that quality. We'll see in a minute. But I was strictly using Zoom, hitting the record button and downloading it, and yeah, I did a little bit of editing on it before uploading it to Substack as a video for a video podcast. If I'm going to record my own, which is like me talking to the camera, I would actually use a different tool. But you can even just use the video record features on your phone. In my case, as some of you might know, I use a software called Camo for my webcam. This is not a webcam, it's actually a phone with software running on it. And it actually has a very good video a video recording function that's part of that as well. So I use that instead to do local recordings, and it again gives me very good quality. The emphasis on quality is a big deal and important. It's like the point that I made early on about the original podcast. The difference between MP3 players and the original iPhone was AIFF. It's Apple's file format for audio that is on the podcast, and it is distributed from within Apple's own system. When it exports from the system, it drops down to MP3. It's kind of like Apple's answer to the quality that you see in their photos. It's the same kind of branding distinction that they made. And it's true because as human beings, we may not be digital, but our analog features like phone and eyes are sensitive, very, very sensitive up to a point. And while we can tell the difference between 4K and HD, currently our best technology network distribution balance around HD quality. It's big, but it's not untenable. And if you can, any choice you have, I would recommend erring on the side of quality and driving that forward. Yes, you're right. Robert just points out TIFF files can be so large that compressing.
I meant AIFF files.
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's right.
the-
And that's the challenge. That's always the trade-off for digital for digital formats is that they can be big.
So are you then only uploading them to the Substack for the posts that you write? And did those posts have the complete stories? Because I'm trying to figure out where you're doing the story versus what's in the archive. Because I haven't used We Are XYZ. I've done a little bit with Permanent. And you're really not a great place to put stories in Permanent.
Yeah.
But it's a great archival for photos and metadata and things like that. So I'm just trying to figure out like how you're interplaying the two.
That is exactly where you should be thinking, and it depends. You are struggling with exactly the questions that create trade-offs. In my case, I have found that is good for putting stories. It doesn't have to be a complete story. And if you've got a lengthy, complete story with footnotes and things that you want to have all keep together, then create a PDF and upload the PDF. But that PDF, you want to be parking it, and you want to park it in context to know, for example, all of family members that are referenced in it. You can cross-reference those in weare.xyz and then include a link to that PDF with all of its cross references to who's involved, which then take you to the family tree, for example, and drop that all into We Are. But maybe the post that goes out in Substack could even be a video talking about the thing, talking about the piece of the story, and then having it link back. I expect that there will be some stories that will appear as I feel like writing it on a Saturday afternoon in Substack that later I'm like, pretty good. I'm going to put that over into the We Are archive. Why not? Why not? It just takes, it's copy paste. It's simple. And it doesn't matter if the same story appears in two places. What matters is that you don't get people confused as their flow goes into the information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're wanting them really more to comment in the archive than in the Substack, though, because from a longevity standpoint, are you downloading and saving? And what are you doing with the Substack posts so that those are being archived?
Well, first of all, yeah, don't worry, they're backed up within Substack itself. For archiving them, there's a simple export button that will export and archive them. But to the content itself, if let's say in comment to a post that I do in Substack, in comment to a post I do about that, I have a cousin that goes on and on about a story that's interesting and relevant. If it is important and relevant in the context of the post itself, I could take the whole thing, print to PDF, drag that PDF over into the We Are archive. Bada bing, bada boom, it's done. I might also think, well, actually his comment is the sort of opening of a door. It's the opening of a cave that takes me into a whole lot of other parts of a story. So I might put that into the archive and then invite that same cousin to come in and add some more. So it is important, I think, to have a single-minded view about where is the archive and what's the point of the Substack. In my case, I decided that the Substack would be its job is to set up the channel, to be interesting tidbits. It would be episodes to drive the channel, whose ultimate objective is to get people into the archive, where their comments are archived, where the material they upload is archived. I bring everybody in at what's called the editor level in We Are, where they can maybe change the spelling of names and dates and things like that, but they can't really add pictures even. They can't do very much. I upgrade them to, I think it's admin, but I explicitly don't let them delete anything so they can't really mess it up. And that gives them privileges to feel really empowered to add stuff. And I go in and encourage them to do that. You have pictures for me? Great. You want to just put them in there? And sometimes they will be bringing me, albums to scan, which I'll do, and then I'll put them in there. I also, by the way, I sinfully am known for my Google Photos archive that I also share. But it duplicates of the artifacts is fine. You do want a centralized place for stories, and you want to set expectations and tell people where to expect that. Make sense?
Yeah.
Other questions?
You sort it all out then when you get say 18 or 17 people sent you things. Do you sort it out into chronological order then? Or
another really good question, Linda. One of the nice things about, for me, for the really both tools, but particularly for the archive at We Are, let's say my cousin sends me pictures from growing up in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And there's all kinds of different branches of the family that are in them. I would upload those materials into the archive, which keeps where I can designate what decades they relate to, what places they relate to, what people they relate to. They are all added into that archive. That archive, however, the We Are archive does not modify those files. So I'm not stuffing this information into metadata of the artifacts. Instead, what I'm really doing is populating a database, a relational database that lets me go back and forth and look at things different ways. So if I want to look at all things about Bob, I see just things about Bob. He was in 6 of those pictures, but not the other 18. If I want to look at things that were done in the 60s, I only see these other 17 pictures, but not those other 3 that had nothing to do with, what did I just say, 70s. So in that sense, that's where the database is keeping track and ordering the materials that I'm uploading. But I may draw from those materials for different stories that I post as episodes in the Substack. And then again, watching comments, what do they relate to? Some would go back into the Substack, and some can just remain go into the archive, and some would just remain in the Substack. And the lowest common denominator way to do it is just print the damn things as PDFs and create a section. I can create a section into the We Are archive for all Substack posts. I just might do that, actually. I hadn't thought of that before. But that would be an easy way to solve the problem and be sure I didn't miss anything, because I'm going to miss things.
Well, that, and I was thinking, and my second question was, if Substack, eventually starts realizing that there's this really cool workaround that that's free, that, when do they decide to like monetize that and say, no, you can't do that, we're pulling that down, then, you've got this content that you've already created on Substack, because we all know that, what you don't own, you don't own. I mean, we own the content, but if they change it, making sure that it's backed up somewhere else. That was where I was curious about what you were doing with the Substack from that point.
There is a button that exports your content, which I would recommend that anybody that has a Substack today, for any reason whatsoever, put themselves on whatever discipline they can manage to archive, hit export just periodically. Just have a little place in your drive, hit export, just do it. And that will export your email list as well as your content. But PDFing, which keeps the comments together with the actual posts periodically, is just a good idea anyway. And these are all platforms. You may own your content, but you don't own the platform. And if they take the platform some other way or change the monetization some other way, you could be screwed. This whole thing might fall apart. Fair enough. I tend to, I come at these things from a developer's perspective. And I tend to think that for Substack, this little leak, essentially, of people using the private method but not paying them, is not really taking advantage of them, because essentially I'm introducing Substack to a lot of people who never would have before. And already I can see, by the way, on Mission Genealogy, for example, because I haven't really looked at Project Kin yet, but for Mission Genealogy, I just looked the other day, 80% of our subscribers, and it's growing at a faster rate than Mission Genealogy, than Project Kin, by the way. 80% of new subscribers are coming from outside Substack. They've never seen Substack before. That's doing Substack a favor. And once you get bit by the bug, once you learn this language, it's like, oh, wait, I could create a paid Substack too. Sure. Same account. No, easy peasy. And so I figure it's in their best interest to encourage more people. I've been actively encouraging people for family history and genealogy. It's such a happy place without the noise in social media, to be able to have a safe place that you control. And there's nothing tighter than that, than being able to create exclusive content exclusively for a set of people who are your own family.
Yeah, I concur about Substack too. And I mean, some of these programs, they come and go. we've had that with our family where we would have photos. I can't remember the site, and then it closed down, and all those photos that we uploaded were gone, and and all that sharing in those folders and photo albums that we created was gone. But Substack, because it has such a robust other use in sort of this new platform for media, like news and interviewing and alternative voices, call it the heterodox space. It's really robust. And because it's sort of built around that idea of every voice matters, it's not controlled at this sort of central large mainstream. I'm getting conspiracy here, but anyways, you get it. So they're very robust, and they're around for a long time. I can't see them going away, and there's nothing else on the horizon that's quite even Medium. I know there's these other ones, but Substack has really found this large niche, and it's around for a long time. So I concur, Barbara, that hey, if they don't make money off everybody, it's the scale is already there for it. And I like the idea that you can do both private stuff on it, but also go public with stuff you want to go public. So
Right. And it's I would be perfectly happy to do demonstrations of, for example, there's the term cousin bait. Many people like, many people don't like, aren't so comfortable with it. I have reached out to cousins, extended third cousins, fourth cousins, and things like Family Search, who even turn up on the related, whatever they call it, relation finder, things like that. And they never answer me. It's so annoying. I can't be alone in feeling that way. I could create a separate Substack that's just for, it's public, it's family stories that I'd like to see. Does anybody else heard this story? Where did the rest of these books go? I have lots of questions for people I don't know. There's somebody at my great grandfather's brothers, third cousins, I think that is, who, have been posting out there, but they don't answer me. Maybe I create a separate content just for them to see what happens, to bring them in. I would do that as a separate podcast. As a separate Substack, maybe podcast, maybe media publications to it. I just haven't had excessive time to do things like that. But doing one doesn't exclude doing the other. Or even another Substack about doing Substacks. That is always a big thing. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I have to run, so I just want to, but this has been fascinating. Yeah, as someone said, private podcasting, what the heck is that? But I get it now.
I admit it was a little marketing oxymoron.
That's
just
okay.
To get attention.
Sure. And you and I've booked time with you tomorrow to talk about a couple of things. But since this is this group here is obviously a keen group, and one of the things is podcasting, which I'm familiar with, and I don't know it extensively, but I think, Barbara, you and I can talk about how it's something about recording. You're talking about, do we use Zoom? Quality. You talked about editing, which that's, what is that? Like if you get Uncle so-and-so who just rambles on, how do you contain some of that? So we should look into something, I can help you with a little presentation, a little demo about some of the ways that I would record a podcast. Simple, basic. Would that be something people would be interested in as a follow-up, Barbara, or am I stepping way out of your?
Nope. Yeah, I was just going to make an invitation. You heard it here first. I'd be delighted to host you, who you all may not realize. Rob's one of the key guys at storycenter.org, which conveniently is right here in Berkeley. And they
not really
have,
anymore.
Not anymore, but I was just going to skip over that part. And they offer some terrific programming workshops and training programs on how to do that kind of content creation, how to tell a story even, and how to do video editing, how to do podcasting, these kinds of things, which are techniques that can be learned and added to it. Some of what I want to try to get people to know is just be yourself and just get started. Don't wait. Don't go buying big, fancy equipment. Just get started. But as you get started and as you start to feel that, the addition of skills, the addition of quality will make a difference in what you're trying to accomplish in the long run. Right?
Yeah. Well, let's just do this within Project Kin. Story Center is sort of its own monolith and all that, but I think given what the interest is specific to this group, why they're here, and specifically about private podcasting and this notion of what is a podcast and how to make a podcast private. The private you've already described. Let's figure out some ways to do that. Just,
Got it.
a little presentation and see if there's some interest to do something else within Project Kin that's
got
more
it.
substantial. Cool.
You got it.
Okay, I
So,
gotta run to another
I don't-
meeting.
yeah.
Thanks, Barbara. Always interesting.
Thank you,
and
Rob.
you've always great things to think about when I hear you speak. Bye.
Thank you, Rob. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here so that our listening audience doesn't get distracted by things that go on, and then allow all of you as our guests here to stay on, and we can continue the conversation.